Alrighty. Let's see where we're at here. Nobody on the chat yet. That's alright. Cool. Alrighty, hey guys, welcome and hello. It's kind of a new program here. We're over on a new, testing out some new live streaming action. So hopefully it's coming in clear. Hopefully you guys are figuring out the chat, everything like that. I'm not seeing any questions pop up yet, but regardless, tonight we are going to be tying this beast that you'll see right here. And this is actually a cool multi-articulated popping, fleeing, dying baitfish. And as requested, we're going to be tying a hex pattern. And we'll get into that. I'm going to adjust this just slightly. Give me a second. I apologize for that. Gotta turn a few things. It's still kind of new to us, but that's all right. Still no chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on the vise here, and I think what we'll start with tonight is the hex pattern. We're, like I said, if you're joining us, it's kind of a new thing. New stream system, just testing it out. Not saying that we're going to keep it, but we're just working with it. Let's see here. See if any chat has come through. Nope, no chat. No chatter. Well, that's fine. I'm not sure what you guys will need to be able to chat on this, so I apologize if it's a little bit new, hard, and different, but we'll see here. Let's do. Alrighty, well, we're just gonna hop on in then. Get cranking. So this is just a little hex that I fish. Up here in Northern California, we do get a hex hatch. We have Lake Almanor, and some other ones that are a little bit more secretive, so I won't give them away. But hex is just a big bug. It's kind of a fun hatch to fish because the trout and bass are actually pretty opportunistic. Fur Factory 9, what's up, man? How's it going? Great moniker. So, you know, it's kind of fun. You can catch huge trout, but you can also get smallies or largemouth. Pretty much it's just a feeding frenzy that everybody can kind of get in on. Has a nice tall wing so you can see it in case there's a chop on the water. Some rubber legs just to create some artificial movement, stuff like that. So, let's see here. So first and foremost, what we'll do is we're just going to put, this is nothing more than a big needle that ladies use for crafting. And I just got a big sheet of foam here. This is 2 mil fly tying foam. And what I'll do is I'll just trim some of this off. So we can kind of work with it here. And you can tell it's white. You could use a yellow if you so desired, but I'm going to trim about 3/8 of an inch width, or ½ centimeter maybe. Go with a ½ centimeter. We'll be metric tonight. So all I do is I start my thread on the needle, and you'll notice I leave a long tag over here. It's kind of a cool trick, but you can actually, when we're done, you'll be able to pull this once you tie it in, and you can change the bend of your flies, so it'll basically help your fly's abdomen bend up if you so desire. It's not a necessity. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I'm using a 50 GSP thread. It's a nice strong thread, and I'll go ahead and trim this more into a soft form. If anybody's having trouble with the chat, I think you just have to register with like through YouTube or Google or something. I'm not getting any messages about it, so that's positive. So I'm going to be using the faux bucktail, and I'm going to be using this for our tail. Actually, it's kind of cool. It's tapered. I'm going to use 2 pieces of this for each side. So if you bought this just to tie hexes, you probably have a lifetime supply. Just going to say that. So I'll get 4 or 5 out of there. They're all tapered. I just like to have a few extras. So we're going to put these tails in here, kind of just like that. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate this over and grab my other 2. I do make sure that they are aligned and so forth. And then I make sure that they're pretty close. One thing I'll tell you is trout don't have a PhD. They're uneducated typically, and they can't count. So and they don't have tape measures. So if they're a little bit off, I wouldn't trip out on it. So I just keep bringing this forward, creating just an abdomen or an extended body. And I just pass that through underneath and just continue forward, making a nice smooth body. Man, I should have done a live stream tutorial on how to use our chat function so I can have you guys heckling me and picking on me as usual. And once I get about there, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll whip finish. My pop-up chat's not working and you guys are heckling me. I greatly apologize for it, but at least the video's there. So next up, what I'm going to do is we're going to airbrush this a bit. And I think that everybody's seen me use this before. I put it down here just because I wanted to get it out of the way. It's the Copic airbrush system. I really like it for stuff like this. And I'm going to start off with this is an acid yellow. Makes trout hallucinate. Just kidding. So I'm just going to come in and try not to paint the camera with it, but let you guys see what I'm doing. So you get a nice, cool, even color. And one thing I'll say is that over the last bit of time, I found that by tying stuff in white, like I've always used white thread, but even tying trout nymphs in white, and jumping in there and airbrushing them with various like screens and stuff like that. They sell a kit that I just destroy constantly. That you can get some really cool nymph bodies and colors out of it. So I'm just going to trim off the excess from our tails, and you can see I still have our cord stuck in there. So I'm going to pick a top, and I'm going to move on to a tan color. And you're going to really get a cool two-tone styled effect here. We'll set the airbrush away for a bit until we're ready for it again. See, I don't know if see. Still working on the chat function. If you guys are chatting, like I said, and heckling me really well, I apologize. So, should probably also swindle this shirt around. Might help you guys focus a bit. I apologize for that. I'll do a quick switch. Getting a new stream going and getting everything dialed in is a little tricky. A little nerve-wracking. I don't want to let you guys down. So if I go back and I see that you guys have thoroughly heckled and picked on me, then I'll answer your questions on the YouTube. I think I can do that. So I'm actually using a trailer hook, and this is a Nordic Salt 182. It's like an octopus style hook. I like a little bit wider gapped hook. I like it to be a little bit shorter. Oh, great question. Fur Factory 9, you are like my chat master tonight. The Copic cans, so they come in two sizes. I use the big one. It's a 180 size, and heavy use, which, I mean, you saw it's just like a quick couple puffs, but of air pushing over it, I'd say like every 6 months. It's really, I mean, it seems to last me quite a long time. Depends on how many demos I'm doing, because I will kind of start to go through them a little bit faster if we're doing a lot of airbrush work. So I slide this off the pin, or you know, it's just a yarn needle, and we'll slide our hook in there. Thanks, Alan. So I'm gonna kind of size this up, make sure, and you're gonna want to figure out your top and bottom, and you're gonna want to pierce right through the middle of the bottom. Now this is gonna sit out of the way in the back of the fly for the time being. We're gonna start our thread. And you just want this to kind of sit and line up right about the front of the hook eye. You kind of want the hook eye to hide it. I try to hide it in between the eyes as much as possible. So what I'll do is I'll pull all of this forward, and I'll just turn the fly to the side. If you don't have a rotary vise, it'll make it a little bit tougher. But all I'm going to do is create this next body segment here. And now you can see when I start, look, I'll pull the string, and if you wanted to, you can actually adjust the body's camber. It doesn't really make a huge difference. It's kind of tied in right now, but that's my philosophy there. And you can always drop some glue inside of here as well to create a little bit stronger bond. But by the time the fly is done, you're pretty solid locked in there. So next up, because we have our top and bottom, I'm going to go ahead and split the top of the wing case right in the middle, or as close to it as possible. Then I'm going to pull that back, and that's where we're going to get our wing to stand out of. And if you're fishing a lot at night with your hex pattern, you know, feel free to throw in like some glow fibers, like a crystal flash and a glow, something like that. Charge it up with a UV lamp, and you'll be good to go. So I'm just going to put these minimal amount of deer hair, I probably have about 30 strands, in the hair stacker. And I want to measure just about an inch up. And come around. And that's just going to be our post. Everything else is going to get trimmed off out front here. And I'm just going to simply wrap down through all of these guys. And that's just going to help secure that deer hair wing in and increase the longevity of your pattern and fly. I use a like a cream or a tan colored leg, not because that's the color it's going to be, but because I want to airbrush it and get it to be as close to the color of the rest of the body as possible. So I'll put one leg in. And I'll put the second leg in on the opposite side. So these will ultimately get splayed out. It'll look really good at the end. And for our hackle, it doesn't have to be a super high-end dry fly, you know, X. I'm using just a cape. And I'm actually using some of the poorer feathers off of the cape. I just want a little bit of leg action hanging off there. And again, I'm using just a standard grizzly because I am going to be airbrushing. You know, if you don't have an airbrush or access to one, you can also, just color it with pens, stuff like that, and it'll work out pretty good. You don't get quite the same fun fade technique, but that's all right. So I'm just going to take these and kind of just haphazardly wrap this in here. We're not making the most perfect dry fly saddle looking jobber ever. And once we get about up to the front of the legs here, or those front legs, we want them to stick out, we're going to go ahead and stop. And we'll just trim the rest of this off. And I'll just grab the legs, kind of pull everything back out of the way. And you do want to separate these down. So I kind of just part the fly a little bit, I guess you would say. When I pull up all of these fibers, we're just going to push that forward. Anything left over, you're just going to sandwich everything in there. And what I do is I'll kind of finagle these legs. Kind of takes like 6 fingers to do this trick. But you can see we're just right up at the front. And you're going to get your body here. Now you can see I've hidden that hook eye right in the center of that. So it should alleviate any wary critters seeing exactly where you've hidden everything. And I do a little bit of a trim job on the front. And we'll whip finish here. And you guys can glue, this back together. I kind of dig it, having the little sides, because what I'll do here, how these kind of have splayed outwards, is I'll bring in a black marker. And I'll just put my eyes in there. They can be kind of big and comical if you want. The hexes do have a rather big eye, so it doesn't bother me. Joe, what's up, man? Welcome. You figured out the chat function. I dig it. I think there's some sort of secret to logging in somewhere. I'll have to ask the company's computer guy about that. So you get these really cool, these will kind of splay out. Just adds a little bit of bugginess to it. Anything left on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and trim it out. Just inevitably you're going to get a little bit of overflow, I guess you will. So I'll go back to my Copic gun, or Copic, however you want to pronounce that. Joe, yes, it is a little bit different. Robert, what's up, man? So I'm going to come in here, and you can see I really start to really color up everything, legs and all. And you can adjust the amount of coloring that you're doing there, and we're going to go ahead and darken down the top. And I think I would like the top of the back to be a little bit darker too. So when I'm working with foam and foam flies, why the Copic or Copic over a normal airbrush? Just for me, it's simplicity while traveling. I do a lot of traveling demos, so I can grab like a bag of pens and that system, and I'm able to travel with it. So I like that quite a bit. It has this cool can that I'll show you guys more of on the next fly too. So it's just really simple and it's small. Fits in my kit really well versus showing up and doing a big compressor and everything like that. So for a lot of my foam flies, I like to use our Loon product. It's called Soft Head. I think it's probably one of the most underrated products that we make. If you're into tying really cool realistic popper heads or like the like on this bait fish here, a few coats of this. It is an evaporative product, meaning it doesn't cure via a light, so it's one of my favorites. It dries like liquid rubber. It goes on white, comes off completely clear, and it's environmentally friendly, so that's kind of a positive. But it just adds, it's like I was talking about where you could catch bass with your hex pattern, and when you're doing that and everything has teeth, these flies, foam and teeth doesn't go super hand in hand in the world. So what I do is I just apply a light coat. I feel like it seals the foam in really nicely, and it looks, like I said, it looks milky and like right now, but when it dries, that was what was on the picture of the bait fish head that we're doing. So later tonight, it's only going to take you like 3 or 4 minutes, to dry, depending on relative humidity. I'll be a little bit of a science nerd about that. So yeah, at the end, we're going to have this nice bomb-proof fly, and that's about what it's going to look like. You could speckle your legs if you wanted to and get, with another Sharpie or Copic, you can stretch them out, speckle the legs, really just try to, put your fly over the top. Realistically, that's up to you. I think we're fishing these flies in low enough light conditions that the bass and trout will not notice that kind of a difference. But you can see you can just speckle the legs up and stuff like that. Hey, Johnny Blue, figured it out, man. Welcome, brother. Appreciate you tuning in. So what I'll do is I'll put this in my Stonefo clip, and in a few minutes here I'll come back and I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's all dried up. But it creates just like with this bait fish, it creates a really nice overall colorway and pattern. So next up is this big savage beast, and it's a really cool little product. So Flyman Fishing came out with these new howitzer heads. So you can see it's got a huge opening in the mouth. It's kind of an oval in shape, all the way around. As with all their stuff, it's got cool recessed eyes, slots and everything. So it's a really, really cool new popper head, and they designed it to go with their articulated baitfish shanks. So I'm pretty excited to throw these at stripers. Posted it on Instagram last night and had a few guide buddies that were pretty excited to want to throw that thing for stripers or possibly for rainbows, which I would pay good money to see. So I'm just going to go ahead and start here on this, the small section of the, it's the Flyman Fishing Articulated Bait Fish, Articulated Fish Spine, sorry. And there's 4 pieces. You add your hook and a junction wire, which I'll be using some Senyos, and it doesn't matter what the strength is at this point in time because the back section is not actually connected to the fish. It's just there for articulation purposes. And somewhere back here, there it is. So I'm going to be using this grizzly chickaboo patch. This will turn into our fins and our tail segment. So I'll show you guys what I do with that there. So when you get these guys, this is kind of a cool trick. You have the whole nice looking feather here. And what I'll do is I'll just come in and cut my fin out of the tip because that's what I'm going to use for my fin. And I have my second one here. So that'll be my second fin. And I'm just going to set that aside. And then take about an inch worth of this feather. And that's going to be my tail. Doesn't have to be super flashy. You could definitely dial in and do the where I coat it with the UV flow or the fluorescing. If you guys have seen me do that on my fins for like India hen and mallard feathers, something I've been doing for quite a while. And you could do that. I don't really feel the need on this. I feel like the most of the commotion is going to be coming from the head section anyways. So I also really don't care how they go on there, as long as they somewhat oppose each other. So I just want this look of this kind of big, broad fin that's going to collapse and pulsate as you pop through the water column. I can say one thing about the new chat that is on my end that you guys don't, well, maybe you do see it. It's much harder for me to read black print on a white background in a dark room than it is white, the way it used to be. So this is a fun new product that I just got my hands on, and it's a flash blend bait fish brush. I believe it's from the same people that do the Steve Farrar blend, and the Steve Farrar flash blends. It seems to lend itself really well in a brush situation, so you can see it's a nice full brush. It's going to build bodies really quickly. I had guys asking me, they're like, how did you, is that Polish? You know, when I was posting this picture of this fly on Instagram, guys thought I took the time to like Polish weave the fly, and I was like, no, I didn't order that once, and it was rather arduous, so I steer clear of anything that's Polish or woven nymph style these days. So for this first one, we're really just going to take 3 turns of this for our flash blend brush, and I like to use my arrow points. I get down in there and I just cut through with this little notch here. It's actually 4 cutting wire. It'll save the points on your scissor many times over. Can't get to see. Okay, well, thank you for loving our UV products. I appreciate that. There is always, you could always get them from one of our online retailers. I'm not sure of everybody, but John or Joe, if you want to email me at the end of the show, I'm more than happy to try to help you find a dealer near you. Very open about my email. It's just matt@loonoutdoors.com, and we can try to find somebody for you, or you can use our dealer locator on the site as well. Either way you would like, sir. So I'm going to take the next shank and slide in the first tail section, and we're just going to build upon this. It's kind of a continued build. Yeah, there should be a fly shop or something that will have that product for you. Hence using like the dealer locator and stuff like that. If you have any issues, I can always try to find somebody. So we're going to continue on with the 1-inch flash brush. And again, it's really quick. It's only probably 6 or 7 wraps for this guy. Creates a nice full-bodied fly. We'll go ahead and whip finish here. And go ahead and connect in our next spine while it's still in here. It's actually what I would recommend. It makes life so much easier. What I'm going to do is I just have a little magnet, just kind of holds everything out of the way. I'll just throw a base coat of thread down. We'll kind of continue through this. So this fly has a lot of the same step. It's actually a great fly just to kind of learn to tie big articulated stuff, because you can't really mess it up. It's a real simple, quick pattern to tie. Any color that you want. You can use your markers to make them look different. So got one more wrap here. So while you guys are out there, if you have anything you want to see tied in 2 weeks from now, start thinking. So it's not right, because I always say that right at the end of the live stream, and then it's like a mad rush. I don't want to miss stuff. So if you guys have any bugs you want to see tied, just throw it out there. Or if you want me just to come up with some sort of random craziness, that works too. So I'm just going to go ahead and give this a nice little brushing with our dubbing brush. It seems to work pretty well with this material. Obviously, with the quality that this brush is, you're not going to be pulling anything out of there. It's a really well-made brush. I'll go ahead and put in our last spine here. So the crazy thing is this does not tell me anywhere how long I've been on live for it. I could have you guys hold up here for 3 hours right now. I wouldn't know any different. but I think we're probably about 35 minutes in at this point. So at this point, what I'm going to do is, so these brushes come in 3 separate sizes. There's a 1 inch, a 2 inch, and a 5 inch. So you can see the 5, it's pretty erratic. What I really like about it versus a lot of other brushes, just to speak about this for a second, there's flash built into it, but the second thing is that they're not even. It's not like they sat there and took the time to make every single piece exactly even. It has a cool taper to it, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that you could just take this, cut it, tie it in the back, and have a really cool translucent baitfish body. There's a lot of fun stuff I'm going to see happen. I can see myself doing, happening with these brushes. I always like new cool materials that I don't have to get out my machine and make. So I think a lot of more brushes will be in the future for everybody tying. It's pretty cool. It just increases the fun for everybody. Oops. You do, even with GSP, you do have to watch some of the points on the shanks, because they will get you. Every once in a while you'll find one that has a little bit of a sharp edge left, but it's actually a pretty rare occurrence of these days. They're so well dialed in. So you can see I'm treating this just like I would treat a feather. I am pulling all of the fibers backwards like you were going to do with a feather, and just kind of creating this body. And by going to the using the 2 different size brushes, I mean, you could use a 5-inch brush for this whole thing, but you'd just be cutting off so much material that you're paying for, that you wouldn't want to do that. And obviously this part of the fly is going to really increase in diameter as we're getting kind of more into the meaty part of I'm doing a trout tonight, so I'm going to do another rainbow. Maybe I'll do something different. Maybe it'll make it more fun. So anybody else excited to see all the new fun toys coming out for fly fishing? I'm sure there was some posts coming from the fly fishing show. Guys have to be excited about stuff. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my 4-inch razor scissors, and I just kind of come in at a pretty broad angle. And the reason I do that, it's still going to look really big and large, but the difference is once it starts to collapse, it's going to smooth in just a little bit more. So I'll go ahead and drop this out, and I don't mind a few scragglers hanging out in there. That's okay by me. So I'm going to use some of Sanyo's intruder wire, and don't need a ton. Like I said, this isn't a this fly's performance and fish landing capabilities isn't hinging upon this junction point. So my hook of choice will be trout predator. It's size 2/0. I just like the 2/0. I like the gap on it. It's a big hook. It's a big, strong, meaty hook. So that is going to be our base. For everything. all I'll do is I'll tie this in, and I want these like right on top. So I'm going to tie this in, set it. You can run an articulation bead. I'm not going to run one on this pattern in particularly. But it's definitely the kind of thing that you could run an articulation bead on if you wanted. If that's what you're into. And I just chose the pink wire just because we're going to have a pink lateral line with some spots running down this fly. Unless you guys want to see a different color of fly, then the pink wire is just going to be out of place. But for the most part, I think it's going to be pretty good. So what I want to do right now is I don't want to encroach too much into the head zone. So I'm going to be using these howitzer heads, which I kind of talked about. And I'm not sure. There's like a right way, and then there's a second way, but it seems pretty unilateral between the two dimensions. So I'm going to sneak in and use just a little bit less pop. So right about where I'm at. Had a fun time casting these and getting to play with them. And seeing what they do. You know, every popper is going to make a different noise. Had some really good swirls on these smaller versions of these heads, and just honestly haven't got a huge amount of time to fish with them yet. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in everything really solid and go from there. It's weird, the chat moves without new chats coming in. Feel weird without getting like really heckled and picked on. I won't lie about it. So once this starts to get back here, it does become a little bit wild. So I'll just pin that in there. And you can see with the hook gap, some of these longer materials are going to want to get stuck in your hook point, and that's okay. We're still using that 2-inch brush. Just want to make sure I'm not missing chatting. Doesn't seem to auto scroll up, which is no, okay. All of a sudden, like 1 second, everybody figures it out and picks on me again. We have fun. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wrap this up to like the point where we think we're about good. You know, give or take, it's gonna be right where I terminated right here with the intruder wire. So again, you're just kind of just wrapping. It may seem really monotonous, but once you're doing it in a non-instructional way, like trying to teach people how to do it, I feel like it's going to move really quickly for you, and you'll get some really cool results out of your flies. It's also synthetic, so it's not going to hold any water. And I'd still recommend throwing this on something like a 7 to 8 weight, super stout 7, probably any 8 weight. You know, an aggressively tapered head fly line, like you know, like a sniper float, something like that. That sniper tends to turn over pretty much anything about 100 feet in distance this size. Alrighty, so we're going to do some brushing here. And once we start getting up into the bigger stuff, I like to use my 5-inch shears. And now that it's like, I call it marshmallow because it looks like a giant marshmallow to me. You can tell I'm hungry. But we'll start taper cutting in and really refining the shape of this fly. And this is even before I'm putting the head on there. Just kind of like to do it in a little bit of a stage. The other thing that works miracles for this little project that I'm doing is a beard trimmer. if you don't mind sharing your beard trimmer with flies, you're gonna be golden. So you can see, you can just really gauge your shape that you're going to get just by holding this all out. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to pop this out for a second because we're going to do some airbrush work. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this popper head and decide, you know, what sort of creative way I want to mount this thing. I'll just do like a pilot hole with the needle. I get like this. I have a leg puller from Zuddy's leg puller from Heroin coming that's actually designed to ream through this stuff. But I had to leave it in Florida because I forgot you can't take sharp objects on airplanes. So once we get about there, we'll be good. And I'll just put the needle, you know, back in the vise. And I'll show you guys what I do for the airbrush on this. It's a pretty basic system. I have a drink of water before I get cracking on this. Okay. So one thing I like to start with is I always start with my lighter colors first. I just find I can build way better layers that route. So I'm starting with a pink here. And we're going to do pink on both the sides. It doesn't have to be too dark. I'm going to progress into a, they call it pale olive. So pale olive is going to come next, and I'll just go pale olive all the way up. And I don't mind creeping over into my pink just a little bit. I think it creates a good amount of realism, and you know, really doesn't hurt it at all. And now I'm going to go into a darker olive that's just going to become more of the top. And I did forget to mention that with the pale olive, I do create most of the mouth opening with that as well. So I'll just go give it a quick buzz in there, and also up top here in the back, just a nice little light coat. It's not a big issue. So there's two ways that you can do your spots. You can come in and, you know, put all of your spots in individually, which does look pretty cool, or you can spot via, you know, one of these screens. And the difference ends up being, I'll do this one via the airbrush way, which is technically a lot quicker. All you do is you take your screen, and I'll just pull it nice and tight over the fly. And at that point, you've now created all of the spots for the top of the fly. It took you about 10 seconds. To do this type of a spot system, it's going to take you considerably longer. Last but not least, I do like to throw some gills in here. And then once I go back here, actually I should throw my fins in. I kind of forgot. So I just do a nice light feathery stroke of the pen and try to feather out as much as possible for that gill plate. Just create a little bit more realism in there. Don't touch the bottom of it. It has a little bit of bleed over from the airbrush, and that's fine by me. So I'll go ahead and put this hook back in, and we'll put our fin tips in just real quick. They go right here. You can bury them further back in the body, just makes you have to worry about it just a bit. So all I'll do is I'll put it in. And they can be kind of big. Don't be frightful of, you know, large pectoral fins. Fish will be fine. They'll still eat the fly. You have to remember they're just going to be kind of cruising along. I think I airbrushed one off the table into no man's land, which happens here on Loon Live quite often. Anything behind the camera, like towards where the camera sits, is going to dub it no man's land. So you get these fins. All they're going to be doing is just kind of popping and making a really cool little silhouette. Oops, a little squeak there. And next up, we're just going to take the hole that we've created and slide in our big our popper head. And this is going to kind of all fill in around it. So you guys can see now that all of that, soft head material has dried and changes the way the body looks. It absolutely does. So it's pretty awesome. And what I'm going to do here, and typically I didn't bring it over because I left it open the whole time I was in Florida, so that was bad on me. But my Zappa Gap or Crazy Glue, actually I've been using the Loctite lately, is dead on my desk. It is a giant ball, so I do like to lock this head on just a little bit with like a glue. So for those of you who weren't tuned in for the first fly, don't worry, this is going to dry 100% clear. So once that dries out, it's not my Zappa Gap, luckily. Once it dries up, you're going to get a nice, finish like that does. And I did forget to mention that the eyes that I was using were the living eyes in Fire. I think I preemptively stuck them on there. They kind of got a cool red color to them. I do like to think that fish will get a little bit flustered. So, alrighty. Well, I think that's about it for it. Well, maybe not. So I'll show you guys one last thing that's makes the whole fly. It's just playing around. So I'm going to go ahead and come in, and I'm going to airbrush the top of this to give it that cool back. Point alignment is pretty important. And then I'm going to come in and we'll go ahead and start doing some pink down the sides here. And I'm just doing this vertically so you guys can see how I do it, but I don't color the camera lens. I think the bosses would frown upon me airbrushing the camera lens. Anybody else have bosses that would frown on airbrushing camera lenses? I think it's probably pretty standard operating procedure not to do that. And we'll come in with some black here. Just a few. Let's put a few spots in there. I don't really care. Oops, that was a little bit much of a spot. Just a little bit of dark and light hues just to make it slightly more realistic. But all in all, that's going to be the whole pattern. I kind of have the fins pointing downwards. It's just going to go ahead and rip through the water, create a lot of disturbance, articulate really well. So you can probably get some different like walk the dog type actions out of this. And yeah. There you go, guys. That's about it on the bait fish pattern there, or the popper. So I think and I hope that we're all back in here now. So, trying to make sure my airbrush is off. There's a little knob. Otherwise, the small people in my life attack it. They think it's a great toy. So yeah, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this new version of Loon Live. It's a little bit different. I'm sure it'll take some getting used to, but it seems pretty fun. We just got to work on the chat maybe a little bit, or a tutorial on the chat. But that's something that can come up later. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed watching. Thank you for all tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Loon Live. See you in 2 weeks.